Hello my friends, in this tutorial I'm going to teach you how to use the addon painting textures. First of all we need to install it, so let's go. We need to go to Edit, Preferences, then click in Install. And we need to go when we have our addon downloaded. So here we have, Painting Textures version 0.8. Install addon. We need to wait a little bit. And then click in this checkbox. And here we have, our addon is already installed. The next step is to set up our scene. In order to do that we need to go to Viewport Shading. The next step is to set our render in cycles. After that we need to go to Texture Paint and set our mode painting in single image. Okay, now it's time to create our first material. So we need to open our shader editor. And go to the shader section. So here you can see we have some shaders to work with. Also we have categories, like for instance cardboard, ceramic, cloth, etc. In this example I'm gonna go with this brick texture. And the only thing we need to do is to connect this two sockets. Okay, but we realized that nothing had happened in the viewport, and that's why we haven't painted anything yet. So in order to paint we need to select our current node or shader and then click in the Select Node Texture button. And as you can see, we can see the material now. We also have the option to erase, let's see. And also you can fill it completely. You also can change the values or properties inside the node here, instead of going inside the node. The first value I will change is the roughness because it's too high. So let's change this value here. The other value I want to change, it's the specular. Also I want to change the normal. And the last value I will change, it's the mapping size. With the values of 5, 5 and 5. Okay. As we can see we already have our first shader. In this section I want to cover the topic of mixing to shaders, so let's go. In this example I want to mix this concrete shader with the brick.
So let's go. When you import the shader you can put it back or forward. It depends whether you want your concrete shader be the first shader or not.
In this case I'm going to put this shader as the second layer. Then mix the nodes. It's pretty simple, you only need to connect the corresponding output with the corresponding input. And we can see nothing had happened, and that's because we haven't painting anything yet, so let's go. So now we have our compound material. So let's change sun values here. The next thing I want to cover is the flow of the nodes. Basically the more in the right the more hierarchy it possesses. So for instance this node here will be the first layer and this here it's the second one. And go on. Okay, let's try to create a more complex material. Then let's see the main layer feature, so let's click this button here. This feature basically converts the selected shader into a main layer. This means that the other shaders will be affected by this main layer. Also we can see how it changes the color of the node, so we can differentiate which node is the main. So we can see the flow basically consists that the main layer is the first layer in the left, and will affect the other layers on the right. So let's change the albedo layer. It basically takes the albedo of the main layer and you can use it to achieve more realistic fade or mix in your nodes. See how it changes the way the two shaders are mixed, it looks more realistic. So let's change this values here until we achieve a nice result. Okay, let's add another shader. In this case I'm going to add a grass shader. So I will import this grass and then connect it with the other shaders. Then we have to paint our new imported shader, so let's go. I will change some values here in order to achieve a better result. So let's change the mapping size here. Also the roughness. And the normal. So let's change the albedo layer parameter and see what happens. Now we can see it is looking nice. Let's play with this value and see how it changes. Okay, the next thing I will cover is the mix shader. This shader basically helps you to mix two node sections. For instance, this is a section, you can think each section as a group of node groups or shaders. So let's go and connect this addon. Okay, then I'm going to add a new shaders to create a new section. So let's see, in this case I'm going to add a ceramic shader, for instance this. So let's connect this with the mix shader. Remember that we don't need to connect the albedo. Then let's see what happened. Okay, as we can see there is black shader. But this is because we need a main layer in each section. So let's turn this into a main layer. Okay, so let's paint and see what happens. And then I'm going to add a new shader, for instance this. Let's connect it. So now we have our two sections. Okay, so let's paint this new shader and see what happens. As you can see, it takes the mask of the main shader, so it's really helpful to work in isolate parts. So basically the sections helps you to work in isolate parts. Then I'm going to add another shader to add complexity to the section. In this case a cardboard node. So let's connect the sockets. Let's paint this one. And here we have. The next thing I will cover is the categories, the shader properties and the shaders types. So in this case we don't need this anymore. Instead we need some maps. In this case I have the albedo, the normal and the height. Be careful, the names of the maps need to be in lowercase. So I'm going to import the maps. And remember that the normal map needs to be set as a non-color. Okay, it's easy. Basically we need to select all the maps. It supports many maps. You can find the maps supported in the PDF document I will leave in the comment section. In this instance I'm gonna go with the basic shader. Okay, so let's paint and see what happens. I'm going to change some values. Looks good now. So let's store this new material into our addon. In this case we have some categories, but I'm going to create a new one. I will name as an example. Here we have our new category. As you can see, there is nothing here. So in order to save it in this category, we need to click in Save Shader and give it a name. The next thing I want to cover, it's the main shader.
Okay, then we don't need this anymore, and I'm going to work with this main shader. All the shaders are created in the position 0, 0x, 0y. Okay, so let's connect it and start painting and see how this main shader works. Okay, we can see, okay, we are painting. The shader is when you don't have any map, so it's useful when you don't have any map and you want to create your own shader. It's very custom. Okay, so for example, here we have some options. We have albedo, normal, displacement, metal, subsurface, and emission. Let's see what happens if we disconnect the normal. Okay, so if we can see here, we don't have the normal. So let's activate again, normal. Let's activate the albedo and see what happened. Okay, so it basically connects the map that we're painting with the albedo. So we can taste different colors here. Also we have displacement, metal, surface, and emission. Okay. The next thing I want to cover is this here. This here is the preview of the brushes that you have. So here we have some nice features. We can import some types of brushes. For example, here we can, for example, import paint brushes, and here we have. Let's see how it works. And you can create so nice texture here. Okay, we also have organic. Let's see. And in organic, I recommend you to amplify this value here. Okay, it's clear now. And different options. And finally, we have mechanic brush. So for example, I'm going to choose this and put it here. Nice. Okay, so here we have our painting, but we need to cover this. It's pretty simple. It's the size of or the quality of your painting, basically. For example, here we see that we can see the pixels. It's not so clear, for example, here. And let's make a test with this value, with a map of 4096 pixels. Okay. So let's import this and see the difference. Okay, as I said before, I recommend you to expand this, and here we have. the quality have improved a lot. Okay, in this section I want to cover these two shaders, the pattern shader and the mask shader. So let's go. Let's add this pattern shader. But before this, I want to change some value here. For example, I want to change the size of the mapping. And we can see a problem here. You see that your shader basically has some kind of pattern here, and it doesn't look realistic. So to fix that, we need to connect it with a pattern shader. Let's go, connect it, and let's change some value here. For example, in this I'm going to give a value of 0.5. And okay, we already have our pattern fixed. You can see it's random now, and it's looking more realistic. The other thing I want to cover is the mask shader. It's really simple. Let's import it, and for instance I'm going to add a diffuse layer to see the difference. Okay, so let's connect this mask here, and here we have, like its name says, basically it's a mask, and you can change the values here. For example, the scale and the strength. So thank you for watching this video. I hope it could be helpful for you, and kind regards.